done, and we can say that all these things will happen. It's just our vision, and today I want to discuss it with you. So I will share some points from this list, and I think you will also discuss it with me, and it will be really good for us. And
I have my opinions, Igor, for sure.
That is good. No, I know that. But I mean, if previously I was sharing, today I want to discuss. And I also added to this list some things which are good to have for human resources managers this year. So I also want to discuss with you to share my vision on what is important for human resources managers this year to pay attention to have as the tool. I mean, the thing which will help this year. So I will do this, and I think I also want to say that I reviewed. I do it every year. I review some reports, some materials which can give the clues about the things which are going to happen, the trends. But mostly, these reports are very common. They usually say the same things, like, okay, this year we are going to be more technological, or this year we have to pay attention to people, well-being is important. But the things are really common. So when I read this, I understand that that is the thing which the whole market already knows. That is why I tried to pick out some particular trends which are not that obvious, and probably it will be interesting for us to discuss.
Okay,
so
perfect.
That's all. Sorry, it was a long,
Igor,
long
perfect.
Start, but
you know what, Igor, from starting off discussing trends. So just so you understand, because as you mentioned, I believe you have not been in Portugal, right?
No, I never been.
Okay. So you have Tatiana here. It's one person that works for Makelove. But the thing is, just to give you a small breach into what we are here in Portugal, what's the development and the maturity in regards to trends. So one of the main topics that is not that common elsewhere, I believe, is that we are still struggling to work on things like segmentation. So when we think about recruitment, we are still in a very mass market and not very well. I will not say one-to-one because that's almost impossible, but to have like a dialogue to personas that we have, and to have directed communication into targets that we develop. So there are obviously there has been huge development in that, but we are still, I believe, working to have more companies thinking like that. And the main reason I believe is that budgets are very low, and so to create personas and to think about the creation of personas, sometimes it takes money to do it. Yeah, and that's because you have to make focus group, and you have to, so it takes effort. Not that it cannot be done internally. It can be done internally, obviously, but the main reason I think it's this is like we still have a market that works a lot with external companies, consulting recruitment companies that work, RPOs that work, and so that is also that has a nuance. It's not only about segmentation, because those companies, they do segmentation, but the problem then is about messaging. So those companies do not know and do not understand the right messaging for the clients that they have. So I believe these are the two main trends and topics that here in Portugal I see mostly, is companies need to look further into the talents that they are aiming to acquire. And the second thing is about the messaging and the right messaging for the targets that they have. The most common question, Igor, and I'll give it to you. I think we have spoken about this in the past, is the answer to the question, who are your competitors, is mostly, when I ask those questions here in companies here in Portugal, either they don't know who they are, or the second thing is they confuse talent competitors with commercial competitors, and they are not the same. So the thing is, I believe that these are the main trends: is to create the personas. You need to have the right messaging. You need to understand who your competitors are, and to have the right messaging, you need to understand the competitors as well. And if you start not knowing the competitors, you will obviously fail in those two aspects, segmentation and messaging.
I agree. And all the things which you just described are connected with strategy. So it looks like every company needs to learn, to understand better how to deal with strategy, how to use brand strategy, how to use channel strategy. Probably we need also, probably it can be a topic of one of our meetings, because strategy, which sounds very generic when I say this word, strategy in our field, in our sphere, is divided into several huge and very uncommon branches. There is brand strategy, which says just how brand should exist in the field of competitors. There is channel strategy, which usually says which people prefer what channels and what they do there and how we can use this channel. So it's very tactical layer. This. And besides, we have communication strategy. So this channel strategy is part of communication strategy. And all these things like brand strategy, communication strategy, channel strategy, they are completely different. And I think if you're talking about these things as really important for Portuguese market, I think we can try to explain how they different, how they made. Probably it can be one of the topics for the next meetings. And
for sure.
I'm not a strategist. You know that in our agency, I'm in charge of creative part, but I know how it works, and I can give a generic explanation and maybe some examples so that it will be easier for the auditory, for those people who attend, to understand what they should pay, to what points they should pay attention, and how they can improve the knowledge of these different strategies. So
sure.
I think it's important. And Miguel, I always say that that is the thing which I usually say even to my friends. To those people who are not connected with the employer branding sphere. I always say that knowing how strategy especially in brand building works can be really important for you, because sometimes you can organize your wedding or your birthday party, and even these events will contain all the same steps as brand building has. You should know your auditory, which will come to the party. You should know what these people love. You should combine their interests and make some core idea, which is equal to employer value proposition. After that, you can produce some creative elements like some phrases, slogans, maybe tiny pins element. So I always say that knowing strategy is so important for your personal life, not only your personal brand, but even for some activities which happen around you.
Igor.
And
do you have balloons, or do you have a clown, or do you have something else? Yeah, for sure.
Exactly. So it's a strange example. It sounds a little bit strange, but if you will use the same theoretical logic which we use in brand building, you can make a perfect event which will have all the needed elements, and there will be no mistakes. Like everybody will be happy with this event because you already know what these people love and what they want to have. And
Perfect.
that is why probably, sorry, it's kind of off topic right now, but we can discuss it a little bit later, and that can be really, really, really
Igor,
interesting.
one question regarding your company. So you're in different markets. So what's the difference that you see, for instance, in Brazil, from Russia, from the UK, all the countries that you are in? I believe that Brazil, and from previous conversations, you say that it's very particular. So they are very enthusiastic. They are very open-minded people. So yeah.
Yes.
So what do you see, and what are the main differences that you see in regarding trends, for instance, in the countries that you are in?
Okay, I can divide the answer into two parts. I think that all countries differ in maturity, and that is always connected with the maturity of the market, for sure. Sorry. maturity of the market. And that is connected with the fact whether this country or particular city has a huge connections with the other world. For example, you just said Moscow and London differ a lot from all other countries in Eastern and Western Europe. Why? Because in these countries, all the headquarters are situated. So London is much more mature than Moscow. Moscow is more mature than, let's say, Berlin, Paris. I mentioned the country, sorry, the cities which I visited and which I investigate. So because this in Moscow, Moscow was the hub for all the Eastern Europe, and all the headquarters were situated of the Eastern European offices were situated in Moscow. The same for London. But when we talk about Brazil, it's a little bit different because they are not center of this communication. They are kind of, I don't want to say anything bad about it. I mean, about the country, but it's not. So I can name like 4 main centers. There is New York, which is hub for Northern America.
Igor, for me that's something new, because imagine when I think of Southern American countries, there's none bigger than Brazil. So it could be Brazil should be a center for all Southern American territory.
Exactly. São Paulo is the biggest city in the whole South America. And besides, lots of local offices situated here. But we have to remember that Brazil is divided into 2 parts, Spanish-speaking and Portuguese-speaking.
Yeah.
And Brazil is Portuguese-speaking, but Spanish-speaking part, I mean, this part it consists of all the other countries like Colombia, Peru, Argentina, and others. And all their headquarters mostly situated in Mexico, because Mexico is the biggest city in Spanish. So there are 2 major business centers, São Paulo and Mexico. And so when you ask me about this, yes, there is a really well understandable structure of all these businesses, but the whole South America always, because of the mentality, because of the culture, it's always stays several steps behind, because people here are not striving, going somewhere, getting some, but people here and culture here is all about having good balance of your work-life balance. I mean, and that is why people are not inventing, implementing, and trying to bring. They are always waiting for other countries to implement some tools or processes, and after that they can grab this. But there is another difference. We left this thing. I just said that there is difference in this geographical logic, because in some countries offices are situated, and that is why lots of knowledge, experience is transported, is moved to this country. That was Moscow before 2022. Lots of things were standing there. Right now, Moscow is still active, but many international companies left it, and that is why I think experience also, some part of this experience also left us. But there is another thing which we have to consider is mentality, which I just mentioned. For example, I can compare just Moscow and São Paulo. In Moscow, people work a lot. So people consider that they have to work, they have to stay late hours, they have always to gain some, to come to some aims. That is the mentality of our culture. I'm Russian, that's why I know that.
Yeah.
So people say usually, you have to struggle, you have to go on. In Brazil, it's completely different, and people usually say you shouldn't make yourself suffer because of some additional tasks or something like that. And as a result, we can see that in Moscow, grades and salaries are much more important for people, and people are struggling for these grades. So I'm director. Finally, I showed everyone this. But here in São Paulo, it's much more popular to have thousands, I had dozens, maybe thousands of different internal programs which are aimed at well-being. So there are so many things which people ask for, like, okay, and how about sports? And how about my hobby? And will I be able to meet my colleagues? Will there be special meetings where I can get acquainted with other offices? So people are not thinking about their career or their experience growth. but they're thinking about work-life balance. And every country has its own peculiarities. I can't share all of them, but when we consider the whole market and we talk about market growth, we should consider these things. Like in Moscow, people are struggling going further, and that is why they gain better results. But they also don't need all the stuff connected with well-being and personal things. But in Brazil, it's completely different. They always ask, what do you have? What programs do you have? What opportunities I have when I want to talk about it, like psychologists, doctors, some, as I said, hobby communities and other stuff, and that differs all the things a lot. So that is, Miguel, just a short overview, and I can say that there is no thing which can be which can be considered to be that there is no things which how to say it properly. I can't say it even in Russian. Sorry, it's not about my English. I want to say that I can say that we always try to look at New York and Moscow trends. I can explain why. Because in London, we also see a huge thing which is really important. It's diversity. And diversity usually, because in Russia, diversity is not that important, I mean, in the culture. And that is why people do not pay attention, and it doesn't become an obstacle. But in London, for example, diversity can become an obstacle, because when they produce, for example, brands or some activities, they try to remember about all the target audiences, all the people groups which they will have, all the diversity communities which they will have in different parts of the world. And that is why when London produces something, they make very, very generic message, very generic idea, very generic product. And this product mostly, sorry, I don't want to say anything bad, but I know that generic, and you probably know that generic products are not that attractive for you as something which uses particular insights or some spicy ideas or something which probably is not good for everybody, but that is why it attracts attention. So that is why when we start thinking about trends, you know that I also part of RAD Awards jury. I mean, and when we see the ideas which are sent from all of the Europe there, I can say that hardly 10% of these ideas can be striking, unusual, strange, and
more of the same. Yeah, I feel the same.
Exactly.
I know what you mean. But sometimes imagine, for instance, what I aim to achieve here in Portugal with the Portuguese employer branding community. For me, a good result is for companies to do exactly the same what others are doing. Because imagine if they are doing nothing, doing something for me is a good result. But this is regarding maturity, like you mentioned. So if we are striking to be more innovative in the stuff that we are doing, for instance, I tried to share in the beginning. Imagine the community was created 15 years ago, and so when I think about the developments that I tried to bring into the employer branding community as a whole, in the beginning I was much more about I will share what is being done here in Portugal, and what I found out is that there's not much being done here in Portugal, so there's not much to share. And so I tried to bring a little flavor from the stuff that is being done outside and being done abroad. For instance, today I shared a post. So Tom shared a campaign from Mondelez International, from Oreo, from the cookies from Oreo. And I tried to bring reflections on why things are being done the way they are done. For instance, the video is centered on a person that shares about what makes us different, and she's from HR, and she says what makes Mondelez different, and then different people come in and say, so it's not about our facilities, it's not about our processes, it's not about and all the stuff that it's not about. And in the end, the message is our main difference is you. and it ends like this. So the main difference is you.
That is what I named generic.
Yeah.
The
But imagine why, Igor. For me, and the reflection that I tried to bring when I did the copy was something very, the process of designing that video, for me, I think, and I don't know, I was not there, and I don't know what the creative process behind it was, but I can think that the creative process behind it was, so let's investigate what our own people thinks are the strong points of our brand, and what we will do is we'll name them each, because it stays in our mind that it's not this, it's not that, it's not that, but that thing that it's not, it's being mentioned. So the facilities are there, it's everything is there, but in the end it's all about people. So this message is generic, of course, but
exactly.
I would like to think, Igor, and I don't know if it was the process or not, that there was investigation behind it, and everything that is mentioned, it has connection with the people that are working there. Not sure if it is or not, but in your perspective, when you're thinking about this creative process as well, Igor, when you're thinking about disruption, like you mentioned, and not having generic messaging, so what does it mean for me? For instance, when we are designing something, for instance, we try to develop, and this is worldwide, is one of the most generic processes that you have, is designing EVPs. Nowadays, you go to a company, and a company wants to know what their EVP is. I struggle a lot with that, because imagine, for once, I don't think that EVPs are that stable over time. And not only about that, I have an issue how then you transport the EVP into something that is perceived by the audience that you're aiming. And so, for instance, we did one recently with Leroy Merlin here in Portugal that you already did in Russia. So we looked at your case study for sure. But what I thought is, to make an impact, Igor, we tried to develop the EVP beyond the abstract concept of what the strong points of and the differentiation with the competitors. So we created something physical. We wanted to develop something physical, something that someone, when they enter the company, they have it, they can look it, and they can transform it with their own perception. So if Leroy Merlin had 4 pillars, and each and every person could transport and say, well, my house, because it was a house, Leroy Merlin is all about house, and my house, the 4 pillars are like this, and they change from one person to the other. And this was something that it's fairly simple, but I think it's more perceptive of the people that we are aiming to target. When they see something physical, and they have it's not like words on a landing page. I think words on a landing page more and more often are going to be either not read, because people don't have time nor attention to read them. And so we need, that is the point, Igor, where I say creativity needs to come in place, because we are all changing, and we don't have the right mindset to incorporate messaging within our daily lives. That's why I really enjoyed our previous, when we talked about guerrilla marketing and how we put messaging in the right way and on the right channels. For me, it's all about that. And when I think about these new procedures and about our area in concrete, how to impact the target audience that we are aiming to impact.
I agree with you, Miguel, but I want to separate these two things. One thing is the idea, and the second one is implementation. Sometimes ideas can be also very generic, and we had example like 15 years ago when we worked with PepsiCo. They had their positioning which sounded like possibilities, and that time I asked, but which company is not giving possibilities? Every company gives possibilities, and every person looks for possibilities. So it sounds so generic that it stops meaning anything. And that is what I call when I say about idea, that is what I mean. But secondly, that's the implementation. I mean, the channel, the media, which brings this idea to you. And that is what you just mentioned. Sometimes these slogans or just words or very generic descriptions on the website, they do not mean anything. So when I read, I just see blah blah blah, the text which can be copied to any site. I mean, to any of the site. So when you said, and we wanted to make something physical, I totally on your side. I also love it because people, your mind can't catch any thread which will connect you to the company. So you don't have anything. Generic text, generic images which are bought from the photo bank and some other stuff. And that is what makes our world, our communication very boring. And that is why, that is what one of the trends which I wanted to mention. And we came to this idea. Maybe this idea won't be good for everybody, but I really love the fact, the things which are happening right now with DEI things in United States. Because what do I want to say? That is my very personal and subjective vision. So sorry for this if it's not good for anybody. But I can give you several examples. For example, not so long ago, not so long, for some period of time, people were struggling with smoking, and that is why cigarettes disappeared from all the movies and music videos. But suddenly, like a year ago, they started showing it again, saying, we don't care about it. People want this, so we will show musicians. It was Pharrell Williams. I don't really remember who was smoking, as they had a Lady Gaga with somebody. They appeared in a cowboy hats and something, and they were smoking, which was completely inappropriate for the music videos which appeared like 5 years ago. So for me, it looked like something really natural and good is happening there. And after that, these day activities also started to be canceled. And for me, it looks like not a good thing, because I mean, not totally good thing, but it means that all the communications which looked like very sterilized, very, very clean, very, very similar, they stop being the same. And again, some people who love, sorry again for this, who love to smoke. I don't smoke, so I don't like it. But I mean, I like the trend. Yes, I mean, but some people who love to smoke, they can see people with the cigarette, and it's good. It doesn't mean that the whole world will start smoking. It doesn't mean that LGBTQ people will be completely forgot by others. But it means that those people who do not agree with this trend, they also have an opportunity to talk about it. And from my point of view, that's a really good trend, which I can see right now in Brazil. It started before the elections, I mean, in United States. So the elections were not over, but I don't know how, but companies already felt that there will be some changes. And some Brazilian companies started to not to cancel, but to reduce this diversity campaigns internally. And for me, it looked like, okay, the world is normal again. Because from my point of view, companies who are connected tightly with, let's say, LGBTQ community, for example, LinkedIn, they pay lots of attention to this, and they think it's normal for them to talk about it, and they will talk. And I completely agree with them. But if some, let's say, metallurgical company, which completely consists of men and which have really conservative culture inside, they try to implement this idea, but this idea doesn't suit their culture at all. So right now they have chance to stop doing this, and it will be normal in this normal life. For me, that is a really good trend, because it starts giving us freedom to choose and opportunities to have
transparency, Igor.
Not just to copy. Yes, not to copy the way of communication which is set in the whole world, but to be yourself. It's like for our personal brands, because I also don't want to be like other people, and sometimes I want to say about my position and not to hide it. And I think that modern world gives us this opportunity again. So this new trend which says that, okay, guys, you can be yourself and not to be in the mainstream, in the mainstream with your ideas.
Not everyone needs to be mainstream. That's right, Igor.
Exactly.
I totally agree. And each company, and that is really, really hard, because, as you know, even when you do, no matter what the project is, and this is something that we need to fight as well, is part of the projects when you are working to create your employer branding value proposition, for example, is that you investigate what your competitors are saying and doing. And sometimes, and this is psychological, when you look at what they are doing, your first intention is to imitate, is to copy, is to follow the trend.
Exactly.
Sometimes your company is not the same, and you, despite you're obviously targeting the same audience, sometimes your culture is not the same. Your persona in regards to your company as a whole is not the same, and that is good. For me, it's
exactly.
That differentiation is exactly what, for instance, one says, what is Amazon the same as Temu? Probably not. One would say not. They work at the same sphere, they work in the same space, but they probably are not the same. One is Chinese, the other one is American, so they should be completely different. And that is one of the things, Igor, that I mostly love about some of the guys that are they have really strong personas, and mostly they are badly perceived. But imagine, Jeff Bezos in the past was really badly perceived because he had really strong messaging. And for instance, all of those main companies that are saying that, well, we need to bring the people back to the workplace. It's really good to have hybrid and remote, but it's really good also to have people within the offices as well. To be transparent about what the companies are really like, I think this is not only a trend, it's something that companies should really aim to achieve, because not every company will be a remote company. And I don't think that even all tech companies should be remote companies as well. So yeah, this I think, Igor, is I completely agree with
previously, that is what I wanted to say, that previously they were also influenced by the global culture, what the culture which said that, for example, diversity thing is the most important. And when I was looking at it, I saw that many companies who had their identity, different identity, they were also gradually becoming the same as others, like in the car manufacturing world. Probably you know that there are some laws which prescribe to make a particular height of windows and other stuff so that cars will be secure for the drivers. And after that, cars started looking all the same, and that made the whole market dull. The same happens with the employers. And what I wanted to say, that when this prescription or this general trend disappeared right now, it looked for me like, okay, we got a little bit more freedom, and right now we can produce something which will be different, and companies can differ. So that, for me, that is one of the main trends which I think will...
that example that you just gave, just in my mind, just brought me back a few years back when I thought, imagine, who would have think that an iPhone could kill a BlackBerry? When BlackBerries existed, everyone loved to have the keypad beneath the screen. And then the keypad disappeared. And nowadays, if you look at the mobile world, all the phones look more or less the same. There's no diversity. There's no...
Exactly.
They tried with open and close. It's but employer branding is mostly the same. So yeah, it's really, really difficult for... I'm putting myself on the shoes of a candidate. How do I choose between company A or company B if they all look the same? It's mostly the same. It's all about sustainability, DEI, like you mentioned. So every main trend for the past years have been the same, and companies were all targeting sustainability, DEI, diversity, all these common things, and none of them had different messaging from these generic ones. Yeah,
exactly. Totally agree with you, and that is what I I think can be good in our world and in our sphere, which happened not so long ago. And probably it will influence the whole industry and we will see some really good results. So that is the thing which was kind of controversial. That's why I was careful with
I
my...
believe Nuno just placed here. It's the why theory by Simon Sinek. Yeah.
Yes,
So why
yes, yes.
always thinking about the why? So yeah, I think people are agreeing with your thought, Igor. So it's not that controversial, at least from the beginning and from the perspective of employer branding as a whole. It's not that.
Great.
I believe politically it could be controversial, but in our perspective and the way in branding world, I don't think it's really controversial at all.
So the first thing which I wanted to mention is this: that we will have a little bit more freedom this year, probably next years as well. So we should use this to make our company standing out and be more visible because of its personal traits, not the characteristics which we had to apply because market needs it. Let's move forward. Next thing, we discussed it with you, and I think we have to mention this point. That is AI. I mean, all these artificial intelligence things which change the market. And I wanted to mention two things. Maybe you will add some other, but what do I see? I see that because of artificial intelligence, many tiny things can be done without a team. I mean, person can use just Midjourney or ChatGPT. And right now, it looks like that some professions like document, I don't know how it's called in English, the person who deals with the document, like manager of maybe recruiters of the junior.
Copywriter, yeah.
Recruiters of junior grade, they won't be needed soon because all these things can be easily made by AI. Do you remember my case, which I showed with the Mendeleev, the Russian chemical scientist?
For sure.
This guy whom we produced, I mean, this artificial ambassador, right now onboards people. So we managed to help to onboard every person who comes, and that reduced number of hours which people spend for onboarding in like hundreds of thousands right now. Besides it works like an ambassador. So my point is that every human resources manager should become a generalist right now. That is called T-shaped education. Some people call it T-shaped. Some people talk about generalistic view of the task. But my point is, any person who stays in the same sphere, like recruiter or, as I just said, the documentary person, they can probably lose their job because of the automatization. And only those who will have a range of knowledge, professions, and experiences, they will become. So that is the first conclusion about AI. And the second conclusion, which is not probably usual, but that is what I saw in some of the companies, that AI started. Okay, I will start in a different way. Previously, there was a tight connection in many companies between mature and elder employees and young employees, because mature were given experience and the younger employees helped them. Right now, all the same things can be made by AI because AI can be body for a young person. And I know companies which already use it. And AI can be a reliable junior helper for mature employees. What does it mean? It means that right now we can see that mature employees prefer AI to younger people because they are not stable. I mean, not stable properly. I mean, they're not reliable in some things. Sometimes it's hard to get in contact with them. And now the gap between elder and younger employees inside our companies will grow, and it will grow really fast. So the trend, which means that there will be no connection and there will be no experience sharing in companies. And that is really a huge problem, which can happen, I mean, probably this year already, because people, as we see, they prefer to do it separately and not to stay in connection because they don't have these touch points to get into this connection. So that is the second conclusion about AI I wanted to share. So probably companies will have to start thinking about special programs which will unite people artificially. I mean, which will invite them to some team building events, which will make a mixed teams. I don't really know what it will be, but as I see, it can become really huge problem in next few years, and we have to start dealing with it right now.
In regards to AI, Igor, I have my own perspective, and obviously also within my company, we also have a perspective on it. The first one is that for AI to work, it needs data, and data has an issue. The issue of data is that for most companies, and I'm talking about here, they do not data is not treated, so the quality of data is not assured. And if you put non-controlled data into AI, the output probably will not be that good. So the first step is to work the data. And
Yes.
if you don't have treated data, you will not get far with AI. The second thing with AI, Igor, is really we don't know how how the European Union is going to look at it. And so in regards to safety and what can be done and what cannot be done in the future, this is a huge hypothetical. We don't know. We still don't know what the views of the European Union regarding AI is. And so as other countries are developing massive LLMs, and Europe doesn't have one. So we are trying, we are striving, we want to create, but innovation in that area is still very constrained. And so that obviously poses questions, because as you know, and in regards to differences between security from Europe to other countries, GDPR is here in Europe does not allow for stuff like, for instance, if you want to work with a multinational company here in Europe, you need to have your servers within Europe.
Yes,
You
I
cannot
know. The same as in Russia and Brazil as well.
Yeah. So in regards to AI, for instance, what I see coming is, because this require to have an LLM, for instance, it requires lots of data, it requires lots of spacing in regards to data information. And so either we have it here in Europe, or the usage of external models like ChatGPT or Claude or whatever, it might not be that fast as we're going to see in other countries. So I think this is also a limitation that we have. And but it's the same, Igor, as we're having with other security issues, because the war is happening, obviously, and the United States have shifted now. We will need to develop, and we will need to invest in, obviously, security, and we will need to have in defense. But here it will be almost the same, because if the whole world is developing and investing in AI, and we are going backwards and not forward in regards to this topic, we obviously some point in time the development will need to come, and it will need to be I believe faster than the ones that is happening abroad. But in regards to trends in AI, I think this is it. And I would say another thing that we obviously have mentioned also before, Igor, regarding AI. This is something also that I mentioned in a post today. When I look at the way recruitment has developed in the past few years, the experience, I think, has not evolved in the same way that other areas have evolved. So the Uber experience, the Airbnb experience. So in recruitment, I don't see that. And the thing is, the one thing that I don't see is, and this was Maya, our partner from Tatio, that one of the main partners that we work with. she posted something today that really made me think. So we test drive almost everything. So we test drive the car, we try the shoes, we try the clothing. Why don't we try the jobs? Why is there not a possibility to try a job and see if it fits, see if we fit in the job? And this is both ways. Imagine if it's good for the candidate, yes, that they try the jobs. If you can acquire information from the candidate as well and see, okay, does this guy have the competencies to do the job as well? And you get metrics from the guys that are trying the job as well. You have a flow of data coming both ways for the candidate and also for the recruiter. That I don't know why this is taking so long to be implemented. This is something, obviously, skill-based hiring has been there in the US for many, many years, but it's taking too long. And I think AI, why am I mentioning this within AI? Because I think AI is the key to making this happen, because it facilitates lots of the procedures that are required for this to work. And but when will this happen? I'm not sure. So we are taking this step by step. We are working with Tadio, obviously our partners, and we are taking this step by step. But it's not easy, Igor. It's not easy.
It's nice idea. I like this idea. I mean, I consider that probation period is something like that. But most of the companies, as they know, they usually consider probation period as the test of the employee candidate, but not the test of the company. It's the same about interviews. Usually interview is all about checking what candidate can do, but not candidate asking company. So only the smartest and the bravest and or maybe the most experienced can do this. They can say, okay, right now, can you please show me what you can do? Can you please tell me how you will behave in this situation or something like that? But you're completely right. Probably right now it can become a really good way. AI can give a really good way to, let's say, have an internship, digital internship, or some kind of digital
IT, Igor, IT is the one that has advanced the most, because imagine companies like Codility and others, they already put you through stages where you need to code something, and you are there and they are looking at you coding. They see you coding and they see how you behave when the problem occurs, how you behave in regards to what you are doing, and the impact that something from the outside impacts the way you work. The example that you gave for me, that is something that I share with everyone. The one from Volvo that you shared from AI, that the guys were on the dashboard and they say, where is the carburetor of the car? And they interacted with something and they needed to check. This is knowledge checking. You need to know where the carburetor is because it's there, and you need to interact with the image that is in front of you. But this is something that everything that you mentioned before, the CV, what does the CV prove? Even the interviews, when you say, tell me something that you did in this situation or that situation, can you really truly attest that it's, for one, it's true? No. People lie. People lie.
Yes.
So it's really important for me to see that, and it goes both ways, like I mentioned, Igor. It's like you need to understand if the person can do or they cannot do the job at hand. And we had a project a few years back that is, we had like a virtual world with lots of companies here in Portugal. It was from a company called Jason, and they created this virtual world, and people could interact with companies and see and imagine. Everything was created like to mimic the real world. So you had the building from the company, and you'd enter and you'd see the office of the company, and you could go around and see the work environment of the company. But at the end, this failed because it was really, really expensive. So it was really interesting, but it was really expensive. So, but things, this is where I think AI can also impact, because the cost of making stuff like this. This was a really, I think, more than 8-10 years back. So imagine nowadays to
Now
create
it can be
this
much
virtual
cheaper.
space.
Yes.
You did it in the examples that you made, or you shared some of the things that you were able to create with Midjourney, and so I don't think this future is so far beyond. I think this is something that we can foresee.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Let me please. I see that we have not so much time left.
5
Let me please
minutes,
share
Igor.
3
5 minutes.
points, more points which I had in my mind. One is very simple, and I don't even think that it's something new, but I think that one I can see. It's, as I said at the beginning, I'm not sharing some general things, but I share the things which I see right now. The thing which I see is that much more companies than previous year start using ambassadors, because it's obvious. I mean, that is pretty obvious thing that you can use your own employees as the media to share information, and it will be free. I mean, it can be much cheaper than using paid channels. But finally, I can see here in Brazil, more companies come and ask us to launch ambassador programs, to educate ambassadors, to explain how to deal, to make reward programs, because they also need to know why do they do this, what they will achieve, like badges or some prizes and something else. So ambassadors is the thing which I think everybody have to start thinking this year. And it's so good to know that ambassador program can be of any scale. You can launch an ambassador program for 5 people, or you can launch ambassador program for 100, 1,000 people. It doesn't matter right now. You have to start. And after that, this program is also has really great peculiarity. Those people who will learn and become ambassadors, they can teach next generation of ambassadors in a year, for example. And you can always change the grades, like get new people. But at first you have to start, and that is the toughest part, because you have to arrange the whole thing. And also, Miguel, I wanted to share two characteristics of human resource managers, which I think will be important this year because of 2 reasons. I wanted to say that all the time when we were connected with human resources market, it was considered as something which is several steps behind marketing market. Marketing market sounds strange, but you understand what I mean. I mean that marketing people, they had their own canned lines. They tried to make disruptive ideas. Every time marketing people are trying to invent something new to be faster than others. And human resources market was always, again, that is my vision, but I saw it many times. They were always doing something like, okay, let's wait and see what others will do, and after that we will copy. And what I see right now, I see that human resources market starts making its first brave steps, if I can call it brave steps, without looking at others. So they're trying to make something like, let's try, let's do it. I mean, this ideas which I shared from Brazil, I think it's outstanding example that clients said, okay, let's make this heartbeat measuring thing to be better than others. And for me, that is a really good example of a client who says, we should beat everybody. And that is why I think that the first characteristic I want to mention is this boldness and braveness for human resources managers. You should stop looking at others. You should start thinking that you can be the first one who will launch one particular thing. And another thing, which is completely connected with this one, is your broad overview of the market. What do I mean? To know how to beat others and to be faster than others, you have to know what happens in your market. And previously, that thing was in marketing world, it looked like this. People, when Cannes Lions was started, or any other award event started, people were sharing materials like, hey, Super Bowl, for example. When Super Bowl was launched, everybody discusses the advertising. And in marketing world, it happened constantly. People say, okay, did you saw Kanye West made advertising just using his phone? It's so cheap, it's so simple, but it's outstanding. And everybody tries to think, okay, what should we do next? How we should how we can make the idea which will be better and bolder than this idea. And this kind of thing never happened in human resources world. So I think that the second thing which human resources managers have to remember about this year, that they have to improve their overview. They have to hugely improve their overview, to read a lot, to watch what others do, to follow different award ceremonies, to share the new materials, to be faster and better, because there is no way to compete in this world. And year after year, I mean, starting from this moment, it will become even harder. So it's so important to become these people who will know everything and who will be brave enough.
I completely agree, Igor. And that brings me, we have 2 or 3 minutes.
Yes.
Just to mention in regards to that, because I have always been a huge fan of something that it's step by step is coming into fruition. It's happening. But the thing is, I'm all about mixed profiles. What do you think about mixed profiles? For instance, I'm a psychologist. I have a master in marketing. So I've went from the human resources. I have 12 years within human resources, 15 years in the marketing world. So I've worked in both worlds for almost the same time. And this is, in the beginning, this is really unusual. I think it should be normal, but I think it was really unusual. I had a business interview once where the director of the company said to me, I was applying for a human resources role, and he came to me and he said, well, I don't think you are a human resources person. And that left me thinking, what is a human resources person? Because I see myself exactly like you mentioned, that profile that has an overview, a much wider spectrum of ideas, of knowledge, much more open-minded to different ideas. And I think the future, not sure if this year, but I think I believe that even this year, because I'm teaching in several universities now, and more and more and more I'm having students asking me questions about this. How can I develop myself to go into different worlds where I can have a wider perspective on what my impact within an organization can be? And I think this is a huge trend that I think may impact positively organizations, Igor.
I completely agree. And I think that partly I said the same when I said about T-shaped education, that you can't stay in just one narrow sphere. You have to know something else. And this example is really good in creative sphere as well, because I'm creative director, and usually all creative directors have different backgrounds, and people know that this guy is from films, so he was a movie director, so he knows how image should be organized. This guy is from tiny activation, so he can be fast, and every additional feature like this changes, complements the whole picture a lot. And right now nobody thinks just about creative director, and the same is about you. If you have this and this background, you can be good with people and something else. I know guys who are really good in technologies, and they usually know how to arrange different systems, and that is the only way right now. You can't be just a narrow focused specialist. You should combine several spheres of knowledge. And if you don't have any other knowledge in your background, you can start right now. I mean, that is the point which we want to. You can start learning anything: psychology, movie direction. You can start learning how to deal with prompts for artificial intelligence,
Igor,
and so on.
I also believe that is a strong belief that I have, that human behavior is one of the main competencies that all of us working in employer branding should have, to understand how humans buy, how humans, what the perception is of a product. I think psychology is really a basis, and it's been there for several years, but I think it's been like a subpar to other parts of psychology. When we think of psychology, we think of clinical psychology and all the problems that it brings forth, but I think there are really other areas of knowledge of human behavior that should be really dealt with. And employer branding, guys, if there is something we all should learn and read about, is human behavior, because if you don't know human behavior, you don't know why people click, how do you
Yes.
design a web
Yes.
page,
Yes.
how the web
Yes.
page should be, because even heat maps, something like heat maps, Igor, and you understand why people go to that space of the website instead of the other space of the website. This is data once again. So knowing the behavior that people have within a website is really strong information, and one that we all should use. And unfortunately, I think not everyone is using that type of information. Igor, thank you so much once again. 6 o'clock.
Thank you.
So thank you all for attending. Great to have all of you guys here. This will obviously has been recorded, so we will share this this webinar with all of you guys. Today it's been a slightly different, Igor, because it's not auto recording, so we have a few more minutes. In previous editions, it closed at 6 o'clock. Now we have
waiting for this.
a few more minutes. So this allows me to thank you once again, Igor. And I'm really looking forward to our next conversation, because like you mentioned, for us, I think this adds value to all our community, everyone that that is interested in these topics, in employer branding, even in marketing, human resources. So all your ideas are really bring them to us, say what you want to hear, and myself and Igor obviously will provide the information if we have the knowledge to bring forth to you guys. So thank you once again.
Thank you, Miguel.
Here we go.
It was nice to see
Bye-bye.
you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.